let me show you just a couple examples of projects where the engineering community worked with communities in order to contribute, to set the bones for creating place. And then, of course, we have to rely on the community to come back in and take advantage of the investment that was done. And this is one we worked on when I was at New Jersey DOT. It was a 4-lane road. It's in a shore town. This was probably about a half a mile walk from the ocean. All the homes were on one side of this 4-lane roadway, and all of the community services, including the schools, the gyms, and the stuff that Chris was talking about to walk to exercise, were all on the other side. And so it was a barrier. And so the town actually came to us with a proposal to right-size it and drop it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes and put in some left turn slots. And we took a street that looked like that and converted it to that. Not exactly, in my opinion, the greatest architectural treatment, but the point is, from an engineering perspective, we got that roadway down to 2 lanes, slowed the traffic down, and eliminated the barrier in the town. This is Poughkeepsie, New York. And the pictures left and right, Project for Public Spaces worked with, and it was with New York State DOT to come in and make changes to another state highway. All sorts of features, streetscape, enhanced crosswalks, a roundabout, which you can see up in the top of that picture, which slowed down the traffic. And the community built on top of this, piggybacked on top of this to take advantage of the slower traffic and the narrower and the easier pedestrian access to enhance the sense of place. There's a school. There's a kind of a treatment you can do in some places. I won't mention any particular places in Nampa that you might want to do something like that someday. And little treatments that to simply take a shoulder and give a little more sense of delineation. Now, the interesting thing about this is, if you look at those statistics, this was theoretically a right-sizing project. It took reallocated some of the street space away from cars. But look at the traffic delays. These kind of projects are not necessarily in competition with automobile use. Oftentimes, if you pick the right spot, particularly if it's in a village, and you do things like roundabouts and you calm the traffic a little bit, you can find that there's less delays in town for a lot of reasons, particularly where the roundabout doesn't stack up traffic at the traffic light. Crashes decreased. I mean, this is consistent. Yesterday when I did the presentation in Eagle, that it showed other examples from Charlotte, Orlando, and New York City, that when you pick the right place to do this kind of community-based transportation, you can actually make things safer for cars, much better for pedestrians, much better for bicyclists. It's a pattern that repeats over and over again. It doesn't have to be costly. You can do things like angled parking. I think I've seen that. And you guys took me to so many places in the last 36 hours, I can't remember where I saw it. But and then originally, these are like nice little experiments because, you know, the merchants on this street, this was in California, I think it's in San Jose, or San Bernardino. The merchants on the streets were initially a little suspicious about, hey, you know, if you take some of the space away from the cars, how are they going to get here? So they just striped it at first. And then ultimately, everybody liked it so much that the merchants, through their bid, chipped in and they made it more formal. New York City, you've heard they're doing this all over the city now. This is not expensive. It's just applying a tacky surface down on the streets, and then there's a certain kind of gritty stuff that they put on top of it that create this sense. And the thing is, it's not a high capital investment, so it eases concerns that if somebody later doesn't like it, you just sort of come in and you can very easily get rid of it, and you didn't spend too much. New Hampshire DOT worked with a community called Littleton to come in, and there's a whole, I could go on for 10 minutes on this project, but just as an example, worked in, this is some of the visualization. They ultimately have done some of this stuff to calm the street and set the place for placemaking. The significant thing, I intentionally picked those 3 projects because it was New Hampshire DOT, it was New York DOT, and it was New Jersey DOT. This is an example of, to show that you can do this within the engineering paradigm, within the standards, within the books, if you have the right mindset. Deanna asked me briefly to just talk about the concept of form-based code. I've heard that certain places around the area you're doing it. It's a way to accomplish this whole sense of, it sets standards, not so much for what the use is in the buildings, but how do they frame the street, how do they frame the neighborhood, how do they contribute to your active living by design goals. And What it does is it either can be an overlay on existing zoning or replace existing zoning, and it really is more about the form than it is about the use. And I can tell you lots of examples of how this has worked fabulously.